So we're going to be solving equations that have basically square roots. However, inside the square root is going to be one of our variables. Okay? So the steps for solving these equations, the first thing is to get the radical on one side by itself. Okay? Or if there's two radicals, you want one on one side and one on the other side. Okay? Then you're going to square both sides of the equation. A square root and a square are opposites, so they cancel each other out. So if I were to square the square root of x, I would be left with just x. Okay? So a square is the opposite operation than a square root. Okay, so it's kind of like how addition and subtraction cancel each other out, and a multiplication and division cancel each other out. A square and square root cancel each other out. Okay? Once we eliminate the square root, we're going to solve the resulting equation. We're going to check for extraneous solutions. We are only going to have positive square roots. So if we have a square root by itself equaling a negative number, then that is no solution. Okay? Which we'll be talking about in just a minute. So let's try one out. So my square root of x plus 7 equals 10. So my first step is to get the square root, or the radical by itself. So I'm going to subtract 7 from both sides. So I'm going to be left with the square root of x equals 3. Then we are going to square both sides to eliminate my radical. So this will leave me with x, and then I square this side, which what is this? 3 squared? 9. So my answer is x equals 9. Okay? Okay, here I'm going to add 3 to both sides. So I'm going to have the square root of 2x minus 3 equals, what's 4 plus 3? 7. Then I'm going to square both sides. So my square is going to eliminate my square root, or my radical. So it's going to leave me with 2x minus 3 equals, and what's 7 squared? 49. Then I'm going to add 3 to both sides, giving me 52 equals 2x. Then I'm going to divide by 2, and x is going to equal 26. Isn't this like refreshing from yesterday? Yes. Okay, so I'll leave it up there for a second. So just remember that we're not squaring what's on the inside. The square eliminates the square root. Okay? I saw some people doing that on the homework during the first period. They were squaring the numbers on the inside. We don't do that. So I'm going to subtract 6, and I get the square root of x equals negative 4. Okay, so this is an example of an extraneous solution. We cannot have a square root of x equaling a negative number. So this is going to be no solution. Yes?
But what if we square it?
Because you can't, if we square it, it's going to give you a positive 8. And then positive 16. And yes, the square root of 16 is 4, but it's not n negative 4. However, in this case, we can't have a negative answer. It's just not possible. Okay? Well, because this negative isn't part of the 4. So we would get this squared, which is negative 16. And then negative 16 can't go inside of the square root. Does that make sense? Like if you type in your calculator negative 16 square root, you're going to get error, which means no solution. Does that make sense? Because when we wouldn't square the negative, we would square just the 4. So we get negative 16. Alright, so this is an example where we have a square root on one side, or a radical on one side, and a radical on another side. So we're going to square both sides, which will eliminate my square roots, leaving me with 3m minus 6 equals m plus 20. Then we're just going to solve like normal, so I'm going to subtract my m from both sides, leaving me with 2m minus 6 equals 20. We're going to add 6 to both sides, leaving me with 2m equals 26. Then we're going to divide by 2, and m is going to equal 13. I'm moving fast here because that's what we have been doing for now like 3 weeks. The only part that's new here is that we're getting rid of our radical by squaring it. Yes?
Can I take a picture of that?
Mm-hmm. Don't need to ask permission to take pictures of the screen. Okay. So here's an example of where I have to move my radical to the other side. So I'm going to add the square root of y plus 2. Okay? Whatever you do to one side of our equation, we're going to do to the other side. So on this side, I'm going to have the square root of 2y equals the square root of y plus 2. Okay, so now I have a radical on one side and a radical on the other side. So I'm going to square both sides to eliminate my radicals. So the square root and the square cancel each other out. So this is going to leave me with 2y. And this is going to leave me with y plus 2. I'm going to subtract y. So y is going to equal 2. Okay, so I'm going to subtract 3 because I need to get my radical by itself. So I'm going to subtract 3. I'm going to get negative square root of 2x minus 1 equals 4. Alright, is my radical by itself yet? No, there's a negative in front of it. Let's just say that we had a negative x equals 4. What would I have to do to get rid of the negative? Divide by negative 1. So I have to divide by negative 1 to get rid of that negative. And then here I'm going to get the square root of 2x minus 1 equals negative 4. Okay, can I have a negative equaling a negative number? No, so this is going to be no solution. Because if we were to solve this, we would square 4 and get 16, but it would be negative 16. Then we would have 2x minus 1 equals negative 16. Then I would add 1 and get negative 15, and then 2x, or then divide by 2, then I'd get some number that would be negative. If I placed a negative number in here, this would have a negative number underneath it, and we couldn't have a negative number underneath. Yes?
Why did you count that as a negative 4?
Because I divided by negative 1. To get rid of my negative. I divided by negative 1 to get rid of my negative. Made it a negative 4. Okay, so let's try this word problem. So the velocity of a projectile is determined by the function v equals the square root of s over 0.03, where s is the horizontal distance in meters traveled by the projectile. If the velocity of the projectile is 150 meters per second, what is the distance it travels? So I have the equation v equals the square root of s over 0.03. Okay, and tell me what v is. 150 equals the square root of s over 0.03. Okay, I have a radical on one side and a number on the other side. So I'm going to square both sides to get rid of my radical. The square root of 150, or square of 150 is 22,500. So that's going to equal s over 0.03. What do I do when I have a number on the bottom of a fraction? We eliminate a fraction by what? Multiply by our LCD. What would be my LCD here? 0.03. So I'm going to multiply both sides by 0.03. My 0.03s will cancel out. And what's 0.03 times 22,500? 675 equals S. So S equals 675 meters. This is a word problem, so we need a unit of measure.